Bodies, bodies, bodies. Uh, hey,
A24 back again.
Helena. Oh boy, Region,
Rajan, I think.
right?
Rajan. Yeah.
Region. Apologies if the name
Actor turned director.
is incorrect, but dropping this, I guess would you call this a horror film?
So I would say Bodies, Bodies, Bodies is a thriller film, a horror thriller, horror comedy film, but it's not really a horror film. It's more of a whodunit movie. It's more of a lampooning of slasher horror movie convention, and is horror adjacent, comedy adjacent, not
Yeah,
necessarily in either of those camps. Interesting in that regard in terms of what genre you put it in, but I definitely recommend it to people that aren't horror fans. I'm not a horror fan, but I enjoyed this movie quite a bit and did not find it super scary, which was nice. Maybe some people they wanted to be scarier, but for me, I was like, no, this is great. I'm having a good
yeah.
time with this.
I think saying it's like a thriller whodunit probably makes the most sense, but really also like a meta commentary on current like Gen Z
Yeah,
culture.
it's
I'd say.
Gen Z comedy for sure.
Yeah, and it has quite a few like up and coming people in it, right? So Amanda Stenberg
Yep.
is probably the main person who, if I'm right, she was Rue, right? She,
In Hunger Games back in the day, she was.
which is
Yes.
it's kind of crazy because I was like, where how do I place her? And then I
Yeah.
was like, Rue, we never would have guessed that.
She was in The Hate You Give as well. Certainly a rising actor, seems to be quite famous these days. And she'll actually be in the Star Wars series from Leslie Headland, The Acolyte, which is
Yes.
exciting as well. Yeah,
And then we
Amanda
also had,
Stenberg.
Maria Bakalova from the
Yep.
Borat 2 movie, huge rising star. Myhala Harold from
Into,
Industry,
yep.
shout out there. And then I think probably the one that I was like most excited to see was it Rachel Sennett? Yeah.
Yes, from Shiva
Who
Baby
from
last
Shiva
year.
Baby we were like big fans of. So to see her getting another look was awesome. And of course, I think the ones that people know, Pete Davidson. I mean, he
Yep.
was probably the most recognizable, and really just being himself. It felt like,
Mm-hmm.
just kind of being his goofy kind of dick, but
Yeah.
somehow still like
Dirtbag
appealing
bro.
self. Yeah. Um, it, it sounds like you enjoyed this movie more than you first anticipated. Would you agree?
Yeah, well, I think going in, and we should note Lee Pace is in this as well. Probably the second most famous
Hmm.
person here, very popular online. Everyone
Sorry,
knows him.
I overlooked that, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, going in though, I was like, horror movie. Because at least sold or pitched to you in some fashion as some kind of horror movie, right?
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, is this like Gen Z Scream? Is that what this is? Don't know if I want to watch that. But then like you get closer to the release, and this actually debuted at South by Southwest earlier this year. Big reception there, and I was like, oh no, it's more meta, more of a more comedic, but kind of lampoon the horror. I'm like, all right, I think I can handle it going in. And yeah, I had a good time. I think there's a lot of really funny stuff, especially if you're a member of Gen Z or you at least a younger person, you understand some of the stuff being referenced here. I just really liked that. And in general, I thought this young cast of rising stars, predictably, all did a really good job. It was great to be with them, and just kind of watching the hijinks ensue in a movie where something goes wrong and somebody dies unexpectedly when the power goes out at this mansion and no one can leave. It's kind of a perfect setup for a whodunit movie. And I think once shit hits the fan, it's kind of a raucous time.
Absolutely. And even the setup, where it's like this group of friends who are having this weekend together at this like this dad's or this
Yeah, they're
parents
they're all
like
rich kids
mansion.
except for Maria Bakalova.
Right. And you can tell right from the beginning that Sophie is kind of this like wild card to the group, and people are all kind of like, tiptoeing around her in a sense. And Pete Davidson, like you said, is playing that like trash bro like guy who's also like the center of attention and all of it. Rachel Sennett as Alice is kind of the like neurotic like loser friend that they kind of keep around.
A
And
podcast is a lot of work. I felt
it
that one.
it is a lot of work. And Mahala Harold as Jordan, just kind of like this like
Yes.
lurking character who's like kind of warning, kind of like,
Yeah.
you should watch out, like type of thing. I thought it was like a really really great setup. And then you have Lee Pace as like the older boyfriend who's like kind of
Yeah.
along, but not really like a
Tinder date.
part of this generation. Yeah, um,
Exactly.
really a really great setup. What were some of the moments that you liked the most?
Yeah, I agree about the setup. I think the movie kind of really throws you in with these people and also with the movie's point of view, where like in that first scene, I think it is, or second scene, where you have Sophie and B in the car getting there, and B's kind of like checking the Instagrams of everyone else's profiles before she meets them because she doesn't
Yep.
know these people. And Sophie's like, yeah, they're not as nihilistic as they appear, or however she said it.
Yeah.
And from there, I think this movie it seems pretty aware of the perspective it has on life and the perspective these characters would have on life, and I thought that was really impressive. From the jump, you're like, oh wait, these are like all like really privileged rich kids, but also some of them think they're like super woke, and they will present those point of views later. And I think it's just really cool to kind of be with, I think, this kind of perspective. There's been a lot of hand wringing, a lot of talk lately about a lot of movies portraying Gen Z characters or Gen Z culture in various ways, various forms. And this is perhaps the most overt one of those yet. But I just really, I thought it was really effective. And maybe I'm just like being like super easy and like, oh, I'll get all the references. That's good for me. I don't know. But I had a good time with that too, because I think the core of the movie too, like you said, strong setup, and then once shit hits the fan, I think it's really compelling. Being everyone locked in a house in the dark, simple
Mhm.
premise, but it's like really effective, and it's pretty believable that they all start losing their minds and things get increasingly escalated and violent. Like that all made sense. So just kind of being with these characters and watching them really expose each other's insecurities at that as they get increasingly desperate. I just think all that really works. And like I said, the performances really help, I think, kind of carry all that. So yeah, I had a really good time with it.
Yeah, the setup of one friend dying, and they're all trying to figure out who the killer is after they already kind of played this game, and we're already a little bit on edge from this game, and obviously from the like friendship dynamics, and just how quickly this sort of situation where they're all suspicious of each other leads them to start tearing each other apart rather than kind of like coming together. I think is an interesting like aspect of the meta conversation around like Gen Z culture and like kind of exposing this like therapy vernacular that kind
Hmm.
of is like over everything, like when Maria Bakalova is sharing about her background, how her mom has borderline personality disorder and she had to like go and like help take care of her mom so she didn't
Yeah.
finish college, and
Right.
that's why they didn't have all that stuff. And Alice, Rachel Sennett, is like, no, that's like a really serious issue. Like mental health is really serious. Like just the way that she like spoke was so like
Yeah.
fake influencer voice and like so like pitch perfect. I was really cracking up at that. I thought that was great. But then like the way that Jordan, played by Myla Harold, just is like
Mhm.
pushing back against everything, but then like so
Right.
quickly just starts like tearing like
Yeah.
Sophie and B apart. It probably due to jealousy, also due to the stress of the situation. Just was like so well crafted together,
Yeah.
and not in like a way where I think you end up ever like really disliking any of them. I think probably B is, or sorry, I think Jordan is probably the least likable character at points, along with
Hmm.
Sophie. But overall, I don't think you ever end up like hating these characters, but you definitely are like,
Yeah.
none of them are probably really good people.
Right. Well, I think the movie doesn't shy away from the fact that they're all wealthy and privileged, with the
Yep.
exception of B. You know,
Yep.
and speaking to what you said about Jordan, like pretty soon after that other scene, you have Sophie be like, "Feelings are facts," and Jordan's like, "No, they're not. Facts are
Yeah,
facts."
that was
And then
great.
a little bit later, I think another like really smart way to do it, Sophie's like, "Jordan, your parents are upper middle class," when she was taking pride on being the one person not from money. Like, I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh my god, that is so biting, so perfect as like a
Hmm.
diss from like your close friends, and also exactly what you'd expect from a wealthy person as an insult." Um, That was awesome. I thought Rachel Sennett too just gets so many good laugh lines. I mentioned the podcast line, but just in general, her energy is like, when she's kind of freaking out about the what she doesn't really know about Greg, as everyone's starting to question him and maybe he's the
Yeah.
killer. It's like he's a Libra moon, like, it's
Yeah.
just
Great
like some of the one
delivery.
liners are awesome and like super on brand for the rest of the movie.
Speaking of Lee Pace, I really thought the scene where they like find him, they're looking for him because they think he might have killed uh Pete Davidson's character David, and
Yeah, that was pretty obvious that Pete would be the one to die too.
yeah,
Like,
he
I don't
didn't
know if
want
that
to.
was in the trailer. I'm not sure, but like I knew for a fact like he was the one who was going.
Yeah, he showed up for maybe like 2 days and was like, "I'm out of here." I
Yeah,
would say,
they shot
but
this in Westchester too, so Pete just had to like drive upstate from where he lives in the city. It was very easy
yeah,
for him.
definitely. Yeah, when Greg, they find him on the floor and they're all like accusing him of being the killer, and he's like, "Oh, you're fucking with me." I just thought it was like such like a. I thought that scene was so great because as being this person in this group who's like not of the same generation, doesn't really get a lot of the jokes and the way things like work, and is kind of like still confused about like how these people are perceiving him. I just thought the way that they played that, but then that he actually also seemed really intimidating and scary as he started to like kind of like freak out. I just thought was like really
Hmm.
really well done from like the thriller horror element of it all, because then you
Yeah.
start to really feel like, oh, maybe it was Greg. Obviously they're not going to kill the killer that early, and I just thought that was a really great scene. I also really loved the very ending when you find out how David actually dies, how Pete Davidson actually dies. I just thought
Hmm.
that was freaking hilarious and totally like surprising to me.
Yep. Loved it. Loved that for sure. I think the movie does a really good job too of before you learn what actually happens to David, they really kind of keep you on edge of questioning who could have done it, who is good, who's not, whether you think it's
Mhm.
Sophie or B or Jordan. And I think it's probably those three that you settle on once Greg is gone. And it's like they do a really good job. And they really do a good job of kind of melding your the audience, the viewer's perception of Sophie, where you're very sympathetic to her when you first meet her in the beginning of the movie, when you introduce the rest of the group. And as things happen, you start to be much more questioning of her, even despite the fact of kind of Jordan kind of going off the reservation later in the movie.
Mhm.
Like, I think they do a really good job with a lot of these characters. Um, and also should note, Chase Sui Wonders plays Emma, David's girlfriend. She's the one performer here I was unfamiliar with, but also enjoyed her presence as well. Yeah, I feel like this movie had a bit of a soft box office in its second weekend where it expanded, but I really have no doubt that this is a movie that's going to last on VOD
Mhm.
and it's going to be clipped out to no end on TikTok and YouTube. And I think people are really going to enjoy this and it'll probably have some kind of cult status, and just in general, A24 really knows how to, I think, like market their films. That's not a hot take or anything. People know that, but like this just feels like something that they will be able to, I think, really sustain even in the fact of a
Mhm.
little bit of a light box office right now. So yeah, I mean, August is not exactly brimming with new releases to see. So I think people should really make an effort to see this if they're interested.
Yeah, completely agree. I also just want to shout out that Charlie XCX
Yeah,
performed a song for this that she
that's right.
released as a single. So if
Hot
Charlie,
girl.
if it's good enough for Charlie XCX, I think it's good
Yeah,
enough for you. Definitely
that's
check
right.
it out.